Yeah, he's at home.
Is he quarantined?
Hey, we're live. Oh, 7:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And at this time, I would like to give the opening to Councillor Pinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On December 18th, the federal government will vote on Bill C-7, which proposes to expand access to medical aid in dying, or MAID, which is a more palatable term for euthanasia or assisted suicide. Originally passed in 2016, this reintroduced bill proposes removing the requirement that a person's natural death be foreseeable in order to be eligible for MAID. It also proposes removing the 10-day reflection period. This is death on demand. A 2019 report on MAID found that nearly 14% of the 5,600 Canadians euthanized by doctors in that year alone listed isolation and loneliness as a factor for them choosing MAID. That's nearly 800 people, and that is before COVID. God help us if everyone who feels lonely and isolated in 2020 views MAID as an option. A recent report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer states, many studies have shown that healthcare costs in the last year of life, and especially in the last month of life, are disproportionately high, representing 10 to 20% of total healthcare costs, despite these patients representing about 1% of the population. Although compassion and constitutional freedoms are often cited as the rationale for MAID, you don't have to dig very deep to realize cost savings to the healthcare system is a driving factor behind the scenes. A further consideration taken into account for the revised C-7 legislation is that in the aftermath of COVID, it is expected that the number of people dying from other diseases will increase as a result of reduced access to medical care during the pandemic. It is expected this will result in an increased demand for MAID. So the very pandemic in which we are doing everything we can to save lives is being used as a justification to take lives by expanding MAID. Here's my question. Where is the political will to push forward on palliative care for all Canadians? Only 30% of Canadians have access to quality palliative care. Palliative care can address the issues of loneliness, pain management, and other factors that contribute to choosing MAID. If all Canadians had access to quality palliative care, fewer would seek MAID. But instead of developing an overall culture of care, we are rushing towards death on demand. The same doctors who are trying to care for their patients will now be called on to endorse euthanasia for them. In a time where governments are sparing no expense and encouraging us to do everything we can to protect the vulnerable, it is simultaneously pushing legislation to allow, even encourage, the vulnerable to consent to assisted suicide. It is beyond comprehension and goes against everything our fight against COVID represents. Because long after this pandemic is done, vulnerable lives will still be at risk, not to a virus, but to a lethal injection. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pinner. Council, we have the agenda in front of us, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Swagstra, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments? Nope. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of November 3rd, 2020, the organizational council meeting. That's on page 1. I am looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Pinner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
No comments? No
Anything
comments.
further? Well, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have number 5. We have the minutes of November 3rd, the regular council meeting. Those started on page 4. Council, we've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Pinner. Any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we have Councillor Hebert is not able to be here today. I'm looking for a motion to excuse Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Pinner. Any comments?
No, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councillor Jake Hebert.
Okay, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, it is just 7:35, so we'll move into our public hearing. Council, we got 7A is Variance V-2020-28, re 530 Wilson Street. At this time, we will close the public, or the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is application for variance file V-2020-28 for 530 Wilson Street. The owner of the property is Steinbach Housing, Inc., with the applicant for the variance being Span West Housing Corporation. Purpose of the variance application is to vary the permitted height of a residential structure in the RMD residential medium density zone from a maximum of 3 stories to a height of 4 stories. The applicant is proposing to develop a 4-story residential building with the main floor to be used as parking and 3 stories as residential units. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There was one piece of correspondence that was in Council's agenda package. There were several more pieces of correspondence received since the agenda was put in Council's mail bins, and that package of information was provided to Council members earlier today. With respect to the application, it does seek approval to increase the height of the proposed structure greater than what is permitted within the city's zoning bylaw. This property was rezoned originally in 2014 from residential low density to residential medium density. So the purpose of the public hearing is strictly for the height variance being requested. Recommendation from administration is for council to approve the variance subject to the outcome of the public hearing and also subject to the execution of a development agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Workentine. Is the applicant here today? Do you wish to speak? Please take the podium, state your name and address, and then you can address council.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Paul Marsh. I'm here on behalf of Span West this evening. They are out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, so for obvious reasons they could not make it here tonight. So I'm here just to chat a little bit about their project and kind of what they're looking to do. Yeah, first and foremost, as I kind of explained, currently the subject property, 530 Wilson, there is zoned medium density, so the 24 units that they're proposing currently, it would support that only as a 3-story building with outdoor parking or going underground. So with Span West, their kind of their trademark product that they've had a lot of really good success with is having the indoor parking on the main level as opposed to going underground. And there's quite a few foreseeable benefits to that. Mainly, I guess, if you want to discuss options for having outdoor parking versus indoor parking, I think that's pretty self-explanatory in our climate. Indoor is always nice. And number two, the big one being is that it just allows the developer, the builder there to preserve a lot more of the green space, right? They don't have to have asphalt from corner to corner of the property. And then it just makes for a much nicer addition to the neighborhood. The other big thing is there's a very big cost savings in having the indoor parking on the main level instead of going below grade. What Span West does and why it seems they've had a lot of really good success is they've passed that savings along to the units themselves and the construction of the building, which is really, really nice. So one of their biggest attributes is having hollow core concrete floors. It's a really nice touch. Not a lot of that has been done in our area for a building like this. So with saving that money, they can do and afford the concrete floors and then also just a lot better finishes inside the unit. So their goal is to make what they would consider a luxury condo building while still being conscious of, end user price and affordability. Those are kind of the main, the main benefits of having these 4 stories rather than the 3. And then, benefits of having, indoor versus outdoor. Just to give you a little bit of background on Span West, they've, like I said earlier, they're out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and this building here would near their 100th building to date, very similar in size and caliber to this project. So they're a very reputable builder. They have a really good product that they've had a lot of good success with. This would be kind of their first dabble in Manitoba, and we feel that Steinbach itself has a pretty good need for a product like this right now. Like I said, what we would consider a luxury condo building, good amenities, elevators, nice neighborhood, those types of things. So we really would hope that council would see the vision of that and welcome an outside company, hopefully plant some roots in Steinbach.
Okay, thank you. Council, are there any questions for the applicant? Councillor Penner.
I have a question for administration.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If they weren't doing the proposed parking on the first level, would this even be required to come to council if they were just doing the 3-story and parking outside?
No. If it was proposed as strictly a 3-story building, that would be permitted under the city's current zoning bylaw.
Okay, so the only thing we're really debating is if we want that 4th story here.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the requirement for parking on the main floor or underneath the building in any way it's too difficult to get the parking on the lot itself?
No, I think it would just barely fit if you did all outdoor parking.
Okay.
Sorry, is that what
Yeah,
you're
that's,
asking?
I'm just looking at, is
Yeah.
it that it wouldn't fit or?
No, I think it just barely squeezes in. But again, that would be pin to pin of that property, in hard surface material, chopping down every tree. You just have a concrete jungle, right? So their idea is to go indoor, just providing a nicer space for use of space and just better for the end user.
So to keep trees on the lot and more green space?
Yep.
On the lot.
Yep.
I do have a question. What is the overall height of this building expected to be?
That I would actually have to get from Span West.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that I don't know offhand.
Okay, question to you, Mr. Warrington, administration. Is there any limit to height in the 3 stories? Like in the zoning, is there a limit to height, what the 3 stories should come up to?
No, the city zoning bylaw does not specify a maximum height in feet for a medium density structure. It only specifies that it can be a maximum of 3 stories.
Okay. So the 2 stories, these 2 buildings could be similar in height, one being 3 stories, one being 4. We don't know because we don't have a set height for the
Yeah.
building in
Yeah.
RMD. Okay.
And things like, obviously, the grades that are shot from the city play a factor, and then also what type of roof that the finished product has, right? Higher pitch roof is going to give you a overall higher building
Okay.
versus doing a lower pitch or a flat roof, right?
Councillor Penner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you know approximately how many feet that additional garage level is adding to the overall height of the building?
No, again, that I would have to get directly from Span West with the concrete floor. I don't know what the finished height is on that.
Okay. Councillor Siemens.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, who is these condo units going to be marketed to?
So in our mind, the demographic would be very similar to the clientele that live in projects like Mill Creek, Brooklyn Terrace, someone looking for, call it either a unit to downsize in, but still want a good quality unit to live in. So demographic might be active adult, that would probably be the main clientele, I would say.
Mr. Marsh, I did see on page 14 of our package, Council, there is, on this one chart, it says, on number 1, it says height, 4-story, 51 feet to top of roof. So I guess we do have the height of this
Good,
building.
yeah.
And there's no height maximums on RMD, so.
Right.
Okay. Okay, yeah, well, then my question's partly been answered. Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
To administration?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Mr. Warkentine, with that revelation of 51 feet, I'm asking you to pull deep here in your memory bank, but RMD applications, have we seen RMD applications without variance getting into that range of height in previous building permits?
Within permitted height restrictions of 3 stories maximum, depending on the roof line, there's been a mix more recently. Some 3-story structures have built with flat roofs. Alternatively, the traditional peaked roof construction, it wouldn't be unusual for a 3-story peaked roof building to reach a maximum height of, say, 40 to 42 feet.
Okay.
Just as a comparison.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So as far as height goes, we could be looking at 10 feet taller in.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, roundabout. Okay, Council, any further questions for the applicant? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Siemens.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you have I see on our page 16, there is a picture of what the layout would look like on the, do you have a plan at all for the type of trees and size of trees being planted?
No, that I would have to go, again, revert back to Span West for that, just to get an actual bit of a landscaping schematic. But that's, yeah, that would be the goal of the general layout of the trees, keeping the green space on the perimeter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further of Council? Okay. Mr. Marsh, you can take your seat. We'll open it up for questions or anyone with questions, comments, or objections to this file. No, no one here? Okay. Okay, Council, there's nothing further from the applicant at this time. Then we will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swaystra,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the variance.
is there a seconder for that? Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor Swaystra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, anytime you have a variance application, you have to sort of, there's always a balancing act, because obviously we have the rules in place for a reason. That obviously there's a limit to how high we want an RMD property to go for obvious reasons. At the same time, we have variance applications for a reason as well, because sometimes there's a case to be made for an exception. And I think in this case here that the applicant has presented a reasonable plan, that the only reason that the height they're wanting to be 4 stories is not because they're going to have more people than it would otherwise. Rather, it's so that they can have parking inside as opposed to outside. And I think it sounds like a pretty good plan, that if you can avoid having outdoor parking and turning a whole bunch of extra property into asphalt in order to meet the requirement, instead you could have the parking on the first story, the first floor. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I know I read through the letters of objection, because there are some concerns that neighbors have, but I think those concerns have been largely addressed here. I mean, one of the concerns is traffic, and that there will be more traffic as a result, but there is no more traffic than there would be if this was a 3-story RMD with the parking all around. So the traffic is no different than what could be approved without a variance. In addition, another objection that was raised is in regards to, obviously, in terms of the height and privacy issue and that sort of thing, and it not fitting in on the street. But again, based on what I've heard here, this doesn't really sound like it would be very different than what a 3-story RMD would be. Yes, it would be a little bit higher, but not dramatically higher. And so I think in many ways you could argue there's a bigger impact on the neighborhood if this is a regular RMD 3-story with parking all around and having all this asphalt parking. That too would have a pretty big impact on the neighborhood. And so I think the plan that's been presented is a reasonable one. And we have to remember this is zoned RMD now. So without a variance, the applicant could build a 3-story apartment or condominium unit without having to come to council. And so allowing the 4th story means that you have parking at the bottom, inside, you preserve a lot of the green space around, and I think that's a better fit for the neighborhood than a 3-story without a variance.
Anything further, Councillor Penner?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments. I am disappointed that, Mr. Marsh, that you didn't have all the details as to the height of the building and so on, because that is the issue. That is what is at issue. I also think that I like the plan. I think the plan is valid. When there's one other project being built in Steinbach today that has level ground parking that's going up off of Penfield, I believe. And for many of the same reasons, because of the slippery slopes in winter and so on, there's also going to be, I think, a glass so there you can see into the parking gate. It's going to be brighter. There's also opportunity for other things like carpentry rooms or exercise rooms in that area, in that space. Also allows for more green space outside, which I think is good. I would like to have one request, though, for the developer. There's a lot of benefits for the community, I think, for this building. I'm not so sure for the city of Steinbach and for the areas. The one person that doesn't get a greater benefit out of this would be the Snyder residents at 534 Wilson Avenue. They are the ones that have objected. They're the ones who wrote the letter, and if anybody has anything to lose, I think they do. So the request from them also has been that the developer put in larger caliper trees along the east boundary. That could help because all the trees are coming out of that property that is currently there today. So as a suggestion, we could also do to the developer that he puts in those trees. But I think the plan is good. I agree completely with what Councillor Swagstra has said, that three-story RMD could go up at any time without appearing for council. So I will vote in favor of this motion with those comments.
Councillor Siemens, are you wanting that to be part of the
You
motion?
could make that if Councillor Swagstra would allow that to be a friendly motion, a friendly amendment.
I need to know what the amendment is.
The amendment that the developer put 2-inch or larger caliper trees along the east boundary of the between the new construction and 534 Wilson Avenue.
Before I comment on that, could I ask administration to just, because that's a very specific instruction, like we're naming a particular type of tree, it sounds like, and, or.
Just 2-inch caliper, that's just the diameter of the tree.
Could I ask administration, is that a reasonable amount, like, is that, does this, yeah, that just seems very specific.
You could either specify the caliper of tree or an overall height. That would give a general indication of the general size. Often trees can be much smaller or bigger depending on what a standard landscaping requirement is. But at least that, as Councillor Siemens suggested, it would set at least a minimum that council is expecting as a condition of the approval.
And just to administration again, just so I can make sure I'm clear, are you recommending, would it make more sense to set a height as a minimum as opposed to the caliper, or does it not matter?
Either one is acceptable.
You're fine with that? Okay, I'm fine with that as long as it's clear. Yeah.
Okay.
You can put that in the motion.
Now, we need a seconder for that amendment?
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment, okay, we're good. So that is set, okay. Is there anything further of council? Is there anything in closing?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, again, the key thing here is that the fourth story is to allow for the fact that the parking is on the first floor, and so that way the parking doesn't have to go around. And based on that, I think it's reasonable to allow the variance.
Okay, thank you. You know, Council, I do think this is a very good plan, good presentation by Mr. Marsh. I think that I think this is something that's not commonly done in Steinbach, where there's main floor parking and then above, but it makes sense that it allows for more green space, and I think it will fit in with the community quite well, as we don't have necessarily a height restriction in RMD. And if this is true, that what the table says here that it's to 51 feet, and if average, it could be, oh, yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just have one more question of clarification with regards to the amendment for the resolution. Councillor Siemens, you specified the caliper size of trees. Is there a total number of trees that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So it wouldn't be adding trees, it's just the size of tree.
Well, right now it doesn't specify exactly how many trees the developer is being asked to install.
Okay.
It would just clarify the resolution.
Okay. Councillor Siemens, do you want to put in?
Well, I'd like to address that, but I'd have to see the plan overall, but I don't know what would make sense as far as one tree every 20 feet, or I don't know what the standard would be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Where was I?
I think we're about to vote.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Council, we've got number 7B. This is Conditional Use CU-2020-09. This is referring to 39 Keating Road. It's on page 20 on in our package. At this time, I'd like to close the council meeting and open the public hearing. Mr. Workteam, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This file application for conditional use, file CU-2020-09 for property with a civic address of 39 Keating Road. The owner of the property is Menno and Susanna Plett, and Gerhard and Jacqueline Thiessen. The applicant for the conditional use is Michelle Neufeld. The purpose of the conditional use application is to allow an animal shelter to be situated on the subject property. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is one piece of correspondence that was received today and was in council's mail bins. With respect to the application, the scope of the activities that the applicant proposes to run includes the receiving and sheltering of dogs, cats, and rabbits. The application seeks to develop a permanent facility for the organization's animal rescue operation. Neighboring properties close to the subject property include uses with zoning of M1, light industrial, and DR1, which is Development Reserve 1, with residential uses present on the west side of Keating Road. For conditional uses, council should consider the proposed use and its compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood according to the city zoning bylaw. With respect to the proposal, recommendation from administration is that council approve the application subject to any information that might be provided at the hearing and subject to a development agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Workteam. Is the applicant here today? Would you wish to speak? Sure. Okay, take the podium.
Michelle Neufeld, 250 Stonebridge Crossing. The Steinbach Animal Rescue has been operating since 2013. Given the demands placed on our resources, we have recently begun researching and developing a plan that transitions us from working strictly with foster homes to a physical shelter location. For this reason, we have recently put in an offer for the purchase of 39 Keating Road. As part of our development, we have provided each council member with a proposal of our preliminary draft of our future building. Our vision for this property is to build a 3,000 square foot building that would house domesticated animals, being cats, dogs, and occasionally bunnies. Currently, we have over 25 foster homes in the Steinbach and surrounding area, but our ongoing struggle is that we operate at capacity almost 100% of the time, turning away many, many animals in need due to lack of space. The shelter operation would be an extension of our nonprofit business with regularly scheduled staff and volunteers overseeing the animal care. We also see our home base developing into a resource center for schools, daycares, and other therapeutic visits to elderly and volunteer opportunities for people living with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, or even at-risk youth. I think anyone that has an animal can attest to their natural therapeutic abilities and unconditional love. Our animal rescue is a service that is managed primarily in our community's background, offering protection against stray animals, diseased animals, controlling the pet population, and providing wonderful companion animals to local families. We are excited about this future, our future of our organization, and the contribution we can make to our community.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Councillor Fenner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Would there be outdoor dog runs that would be used? at
There
this
would be.
facility?
Our plans have, we have space for 9 kennels right now on our drawing. They would have access to an outdoor run, but those outdoor runs wouldn't be 24/7. They would only be when staff is there.
Just one follow-up question. Is there any idea of what times of the day those runs would be utilized?
We haven't really discussed hours of operation into full detail yet, but obviously someone would have to, if we did have lots of dogs there, we would probably have to have someone let them out like later in the evening, like around 8 or 9 o'clock for the night, and then they would be taken look after in the morning.
Okay. Okay. So they would be let out for night?
No, they would be let out to use the washroom and do that, and then,
Oh,
and then be brought back in for night.
Okay, and so then
Yeah.
all night long it's quiet?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I guess you can take a seat. We'll see if there's anyone with questions or comments or objections to this file.
Good evening, councillors, mayor.
Yep. Yeah, state your name and address, please.
90 Keating, Owen Smolders.
And I'm Maria.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, so I guess for our concern is because we live across from the property, and I'm happy that what they're doing. I'm not really objecting. I'm just more concerned because, you know, we have dogs, people that have dogs already, and then when you have other dogs barking, and you know, we know what's going to happen. Dogs smell other dogs. It's just that whole thing in the neighborhood of just other animals smell other animals, and you have more animals around, more dogs, and barking. You know, it's quite enough in the evening or stuff like that. You know, I mean, the daytime it's busy because you got the traffic on Keating, and you got the other not construction, but there's a trucking place in the back, but you don't hear any of that. It's quite quiet. So that was more of the concerns of just noise, more animals, other animals, smelling animals, and they do come around. You know, I mean, that's,
I guess
that
what
would,
we're trying to say is that the issue is not the problem, it's the location.
yeah.
If it was more out of town, where they have a little bit more room to bark and to meow and to all their stuff, then it would be a little bit more understanding.
Okay.
Let's say when you go further down Keating, right? I mean, there's more open areas to have a shelter like that. I mean, we're happy that people do that, that we have people to do stuff like that. So we're not condemning that part of what they're doing. You know, we're pet owners ourselves, you know, but just, you know, such a thing like that is so in front of the house, that's where it is right there. And for us, it's right there.
It's direct.
It's direct. And there's other neighbors too from the sides that have that same thing, but
Okay.
that's the concern of, you know, noise, more barking in the evening if I want to relax. I mean, I only get so many days that I'm home myself to just unwind. I don't want to hear 8 o'clock when I'm sitting outside in the tub and I got to hear dogs barking. And just, you know, we're house owners that I want a little bit of peace, you know, than to hear that. I mean, if that's.
And I understand that it's an industrial area, I do understand that. Now, if it was, let's say, down, what's that street? Out of Clear Spring area, down that road, the Park Road or whatever it is. If it was further down in that area, a little bit more open area, where the scent isn't quite as much, where the noise isn't quite as much, you know, it really doesn't matter as long as it's not like right by residential. My personal thing is, if it was the person's backyard, you know, how would they like it if they had all these animals coming around on their backyard?
Because I think just down the street from Keating, they just opened a vet, but that's right on the highway at the corner, and there's no, like, there's a business, and then that's, you know, that's so far right at the highway already, that's, so, I mean, I know there's things coming up and being built, but, like I said, that was just a big concern of just,
So just for clarification, are you making a formal complaint?
No, we're just denying.
I mean, a formal objection, sorry.
Yes.
formal
it's
objection.
just, yeah, that's concern of, what's, because then it's,
So you're nodding, you are making a formal objection to this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you identify or tell the staff, to, like, just so we can see, like, where do you live in reference to the...
right there where the star is there, yeah.
That's us.
Okay.
And the neighbor that will be coming in after is to the
Yeah,
right
right
of us,
there.
right there.
Okay.
Okay,
Like, just to verify that it's not the issue that's at hand, it's the location. Everything's location, 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 right? This is definitely, like, it's right there.
anything further of council? Okay, thank you,
Thank you, Councilors, Mayor.
thank you.
Somehow. I'm sorry. And a wheelie, you know. All right, thank you.
Okay, good evening, state your name and your address, please.
Harold Miller, 80 Keating Road.
Okay, go ahead.
I just got like the noise in the evening and the odors. I don't know how that kind of thing works, but those are my only concerns. And I don't know, we have that big field in the back there between us and Martin Diesel there, and I don't know what all lives in there. So, I mean, that might attract some other animals, I don't know.
And so is this a formal objection? You're objecting to this?
I guess, yeah, I'm just worried about that, and, 'cause, I don't know how those things work really, but.
Okay. Any questions for the resident? No. Is there anything further? So
No.
basically, you're looking at noise and odors.
Yes, and other animals that might come around or whatever. Animals smell other animals, so I'm just,
Okay. Councillor Hebert.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You made a comment about evenings. So what time of the evening would you like it to be quiet?
Well, I'm concerned about family barbecues and stuff like that. You know,
Okay.
Barking and, like, just evenings, spending time with the family, even afternoons, like, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure dogs will be barking.
Because we had a comment from the applicant saying that by 8 o'clock, those animals would be indoors.
Okay. Yeah, I just figured I'd bring that to attention anyways for that.
Anything further of council? Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with questions, comments, or would like to object to this file?
Councillor, again?
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add to, when they were talking times, when I was listening on the telly, nobody really knew the times because they're stating that they don't know what times they'll be there. So we have to look at that. No, there's no times being given. If the staff could be there at 7 in the morning or 10 at night or 6 so dogs and cats or whatever's going to be let out at different times. So they don't really know that yet. So I just wanted to add that, what I heard that. Like he didn't know how to add to that. If we don't know times, then it's going to be a various of different times. So that's the only thing I wanted to add to that as when he was asking him that as for, there's no times of when they're going to be out or how long. And, you know, you could say half an hour, could be an hour, could be at 6 in the morning, could be at 8. There's not a scheduled time for them as they're scheduling for their staff or how many staff they'll have or so. Anyways, that was my.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with questions? Yeah.
Hi,
Hello. State your name and address, please.
I'm Cameron Pisadny, 250 Stonebridge Crossing.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would just like to add on the whole time. The only reason that there's not maybe a complete time frame is because we don't know. We're going based on something that we haven't done before. So I would say it's not like we're getting there at 6:30 in the morning to let all dogs out. It will be on more of a schedule. So it's not going to be like we're waking up volunteers and everything to go let dogs out at like 10:30. You know, it'll be more when we're there, when it's scheduled. It won't be just random times. It won't be as like, it'll be more of a stricter schedule based on how many people are there, how many dogs we have. It's not going to be just like a free-for-all. It's not like they're going to be completely running around. They'll be in their own separate cages. If there shouldn't be conflict between them, there shouldn't be too loud. There shouldn't be too many things around there that would cause too many noise.
Thank you. So this is an answer to the whole time issue, the
Yeah.
whole noise issue.
Just how noisy it is. I mean, there is also a vet clinic right there, so it doesn't seem like there's too many noise complaints from there, although they don't have their animals outside as much. But I mean, it's not like the dogs are constantly running around outside.
Okay. Any questions of council? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll just ask one more time. Is there anyone with questions, comments, or objections to this file? Okay, seeing none. I would like the applicant, if you would like to rebuttal any of the objections that were made.
Yeah, I
now's
would.
your chance.
As far as noise goes, we typically don't get a whole lot of stray dogs through our rescue. There aren't a lot of stray dogs in Steinbach. We average maybe 3 dogs a year right now. Sometimes that could be a mother with a litter of puppies. We do want to rely strictly, if we can, on foster homes as well, because that is the best setting for an animal. So if we do get a dog in and we have a foster home that is able to take it, other than being in our shelter, shelter is the last resort that we want for an animal. We want them to be in foster homes as much as possible, but we just don't have as many foster homes as we can right now to house all the animals that we get calls for. We turn away probably 80% of the calls that we get right now.
And this is dogs primarily that you?
Well, mostly cats. Yeah, we don't get a whole lot of calls for dogs.
Okay.
So we did actually tour the Morden Humane Society. They had 19 kennels for dogs set up in their facility, and they had 1 dog there.
Okay.
So when we drew up our plans, we drew up enough for 9 kennels. And that we are pretty sure that we'll not be at full capacity.
Okay.
So the noise complaint, I don't think that should be an issue at all. We want to be very respectful to the residents, obviously, around there, because we rely on the community for our support. So we will do whatever we can to like accommodate the residents and hours of operation and stuff like that. But there will be probably times when maybe we do get a call like later at night where we have to bring a dog to the facility late at night, or a cat or something like that. But there will be no animals that will be running around and wreaking havoc in the neighborhood.
Okay.
They'll all be supervised.
Question?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, obviously, as we've just been talking about, the major objection from neighbors is concerns about noise, and it sounds like obviously in the evening.
Right.
Would it be any sort of hardship if there were a condition put on approval saying, for example, as of 6, that the dogs are not to be outside past 6 p.m., like sort of as an example of a condition? Do you foresee? And we're not talking about in an emergency situation, dogs being brought down and all that, but as far as if the city were to restrict that as of 6 p.m., dogs are supposed to be inside, would that be, or is there a different time that they could? I just want to sort of see here in terms of what works and all that.
Like define being outside, like unsupervised, because like we often will have volunteers come. Like we plan on having a fenced in area where volunteers can walk the dogs, stuff like that. So if a dog doesn't get let out, it gets let out at 6 o'clock p.m. Like most dogs can't wait from 6 o'clock p.m. till morning to go for a bathroom break.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just wanted clarification.
So it would mostly be bathroom breaks or volunteers coming to take dogs for walks.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Hebert.
For you, Mr. Mayor, this is not a kennel for billeting dogs or
No.
cats. It's strictly a shelter for rescue.
Right.
Okay.
No animal breeding whatsoever,
Okay.
and no boarding.
Just a follow-up question, and hopefully you're okay with this, Councillor Schweitzer. Would you be okay with a restriction of that no unsupervised animals after 6 o'clock because of the
Outside?
Outside. after-
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, a supervised animal will be much quieter, will be much more well-behaved because they're supervised.
Absolutely,
It's a one-on-one situation.
yeah,
So would you be okay with that kind of a restriction?
absolutely. If there's no staff there, there will be no animals allowed outside.
Okay. Councillor Schweitzer, are you okay with that restriction?
Oh, yeah, well, it sounds like we could make it that we're just saying no unsupervised animals outside.
Yeah.
We also have to think of the protection of the animals, right? If they're allowed outside, they're vulnerable to all different kinds of things. So we would never allow an animal to be outside without one of us staff members being there.
Okay. Did you have a question, Council? No. Okay. Is there anything further, Council? Okay. Then thank you very much. Well, Council, we will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
Motion to approve.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Well, that was a great presentation, and they've presented a great plan that I've been looking at here in our agenda package. This is a very important service to our city. So many people have pets, so people love animals, from what I can tell. And also, we need a place for stray animals to go and be brought to. So I really appreciate the service that this provides to our community. There's many great reference letters in here from veterinarians, that type of thing in the surrounding area. So the reputation is great, even among professionals in that field. So I think this will be a great addition to our community and something we need.
Thank you. Anything further?
I'd basically add, yes, I definitely would like to see this go ahead because we need to have these animals that are being neglected or lost, as far as that goes, to have them in a place of shelter. So yes, definitely would approve that.
Go ahead, Councillor Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having worked with Steinbach Area Rescue previously, they have proven themselves to be professional. They've proven themselves that they do care about the animals greatly, and that's something that that is incredibly important anytime something comes forward dealing with animals. That's why it's set in our bylaws that it's automatically a conditional use when you're coming forward with an application such as this. I do not doubt that there at this time that your intentions are true, that you won't be having a considerable amount of stray dogs. However, as cities grow and as things change, that could change as well. So I do feel that there should be a condition on this with regards to unattended dogs with regards to a time frame. And I would like to see that there be no unattended dogs. And I say unattended meaning that there would be, as opposed to unsupervised, being that they are actually being attended within close proximity outdoors and not just a staff member on site from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. if that is something that Councillor Penner would agree to as a friendly amendment.
I prefer not, quite frankly. I think the intention's good, but I hesitate at adding too many restrictions. In any business, things change and are fluid. I just would prefer to not have additional restrictions. It sounds like that's basically what they do anyways. It's just a part of their, operating plan, as it were. So my preference would be just to keep it as flexible as possible. Based on what they've said to us, I believe that and you yourself said, I believe that it is professional and they're taking care to do what's best for the animals.
And you're okay with that answer?
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further of council? Councillor Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support the motion as well. I think that I think this is something that our city has needed for a long time. We know that there are stray animals, particularly cats, that need a home, and when you don't have enough room in foster homes, then a shelter is a helpful backup, and it's nice to have sort of a central place where this can be organized out of. I'm pretty sympathetic to cats. We have 2 cats that were strays and that we kept because we just couldn't bear there was also nowhere to take them, and so we took them in, and so that's tough. And it's nice to know that if you have a shelter like this, in addition to the foster homes, that if there's another cat in our area, there's the possibility that I could get them a good home without having to take it in myself, because I'm kind of at capacity. So I think this is a good project, a good proposal.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Well, I concur with Councillor Swagstra. We have 2 cats as well, and I don't want to have to take another one in, quite frankly. So this is good news for me and Councillor Swagstra, as well as for the city.
Okay, thank you, council. Well, growing up, I was Steinbach's and area animal rescue when I was a young boy. Because I don't know, maybe I was destined to be a meat cutter, but every dog followed me home. That's just how it happened. And my mom was forever finding homes for dogs. But that's just my funny little story to tell today. But I've been able to work with Steinbach area animal rescue, and they have incredible integrity. They love animals, they love our city, and they will do everything in their power to work with the neighborhood. I do believe that, because that's what they've shown me. Michelle, thank you. It was an amazing presentation. And we could feel your heart for animals through this. And we do know you'll do a great job, and you'll work with our animal control people that we have now, because you already are, and you'll also be working with our bylaw officer. And I know it will definitely enhance the services the city has right now, and I know you guys will do a great job, and the animals in our community will be better for it. So I will support this motion too. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council, we have 7C, we have Conditional Use 2020-10. This is referring to 1340 Northgate Drive. At this time, we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Warkentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this application for conditional use file CU-2020-10 for Unit 1340 Northgate Drive in Steinbach. The owner of the property is Northview Development LTD, Prospect Land and Cattle Company, Inc., and Shinkle Properties, Inc., with the applicant for the conditional use being BKRJ Holdings Ltd. Purpose of the conditional use application is to use the subject property for the purpose of fleet services and other services related thereto. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on file. The recommendation from administration is to approve the conditional use application subject to any new evidence being presented.
Thank you, Mr. Warkentine. Is the applicant here today? Do you wish to speak? It's not your first rodeo, so go ahead.
Bob Shinkle, 29 Wyndham, representing the owners. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for the time. As you know, Freightliner would like to purchase a lot. I think it's a great opportunity for the city. It's going to be a state-of-the-art building, and it'll be right on the entrance of Steinbach. I think it's going to be a very pretty building that we'll all be proud of. The most important thing is that it'll create jobs, and there'll be well-paying jobs, skilled labor, and there'll be full-time jobs. Something that I think is an important addition to our city. Mm-hmm. The proposal also fits the neighborhood. It's very similar to like Big Freight next door, Trucks Unlimited across the way, Diamond Construction, Steinbach Truck Services. The whole this business really fits the environment. So I would sure hope that you would give it some serious consideration.
Thank you. Council, any questions of council for the applicant? Okay, you can take your seat. Oh, you wish to speak?
Is that okay?
Yeah, come right ahead, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Councilors, Walden Newstater, 78, where do I live now? Granite Park Boulevard, I think, or something like that. We just moved today. I'm here on behalf of the purchaser of this property, and the purchaser is really excited to be locating or attempting to locate in Steinbach. And I think we're here because we didn't really have a really good category for their business that they're in. The land is being purchased by a holdco. The holdco is actually a company affiliated with Freightliner Manitoba, and so they want to build a dealership, service, and parts facility in Steinbach here, and they're excited to come here. They've showed us the plans for the first portion of the building. The first portion of the building is going to be over 20,000 square feet, and so they really want to commit to Steinbach, and as they have committed to Manitoba in their recent dealership that they built at Centerport. So they're anticipating and hoping that they can form a good long-time relationship with our community here.
Thank you. Sounds good. Any questions? Okay, is there anyone here with questions, comments, or objections for this file? No? I will ask one more time. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objections for this file? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion. We approve the conditional use.
Second. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is very exciting. Anytime we have a new business that wants to come to Steinbach and invest in our city and create full-time jobs, that is excellent. As was described, the type of business is a good fit for the surrounding area, and I think this is great.
Anything further, Councillor Penner?
They had me at creating well-paying jobs, so I'm in.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No.
Yes, council, this is great news for our city. This is a brand new company to our city. They want to come and set up shop and sell trucks and service trucks. I think it's great. I think it's a great fit for the area. So call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, council, there are no delegations. We'll move to number 9A, reports and recommendations of city manager. This is the referring to the McKenzie Avenue and Giesbrecht Street stop sign request. It starts on page 64 of our package. Mr. Workney, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a report that was prepared by administration in response to what started as an emailed request from a resident of Steinbach, specifically in the Meadows subdivision, requesting council's consideration to review the traffic movements and possible consideration for a four-way stop sign at the intersection of McKenzie Avenue and Giesbrecht Street in Steinbach. This matter was referred by council to administration in July. Report is now complete that you see in your agenda package. City's engineering staff completed a traffic analysis considering the appropriateness of whether or not a four-way stop at this intersection was warranted. As a result of the review, while engineering staff did not find that there was sufficient traffic to warrant the installation of a four-way stop, recommendation is being provided that traffic counts and pedestrian counts are sufficient, and a recommendation is that an active crossing treatment system be installed with a push-button activation, lighting system, crosswalk markings, and all appropriate signage. It's similar to the other solar-powered lit pedestrian crossings that we have in other locations in Steinbach, and that is the recommendation for council to authorize that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Workney. Just a question. So is it similar to the one that is actually by just further down McKenzie across the highway by the school, the SRSS school?
That would be, yeah, one of those examples, also on Hespeler and also on Lone Boulevard.
Okay. Okay. And that is the recommendation put forward by the study?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens?
Motion to approve the recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm not a big fan of adding stop signs anywhere. I think this is a good recommendation. This is a good report. It provides with a lot of good information on vehicular traffic as well as the pedestrian traffic. And the recommendation is that we put it into pedestrian control with push button activation, which we have similar in other areas within Steinbach. It is it's 11-meter wide street, but one of the concerns that was raised and needs to be noted that the speed limit is of issue, and perhaps Councillor Swagstra could take that to the RCMP advisory to deal with. but that is a concern. I think this is a good first step. As our community grows, it is growing into the west, down McKenzie. There will be a lot more traffic down that street moving forward. I think this is a first step, but we'll have to keep an eye on this and see what traffic counts do down the road as well. And potentially, at some point, we might have to add it to when we do traffic count on various intersections, Steinbach. But at this point, make a recommendation that we follow through with the recommendation from CU administration.
Thank you, Councillor Siemens. Anything further, Councillor Penner?
I too like the recommendation here. I like it that it'll focus on safety for children, in particular walking to and from school. We want to keep our kids in the community safe, and this is a huge benefit for that area. And that area is growing so fast, and there are a lot of children in that area. So I really like that. The other part I like about that, as we see when we go on Hespeler, there's something similar there, which is close by a school as well. And what's really great about that is it doesn't stop traffic unnecessarily if, there's nobody crossing or no pedestrians. So it can keep traffic moving quite smoothly, but at the same time, when there is that additional safety needed and the need to cross, then it provides that option to do this so safely.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No, sir.
Well, council, I do want to first say great job by our staff. Thank you, Mr. Workstein, and pass that on. They've done a great job with this study. And I do totally agree with their recommendation. I think this recommendation is good because it keeps traffic flowing, but it offers a safe venue for pedestrians to cross the street. And that's why I will also support this motion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, council, we got number 10, administration. That is 10A. We have accounts payable, and they're in the back of the book. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments?
No comment.
Nothing further. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 10B, we have the financial statements ending October 31st, 2020. That's in the back of the book. Also looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No comments.
Nothing further. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 10C, council, we have had a great October. We've had the building permits came in at just under $8.2 million, bringing our total to $46.7 million for the year. It's been, considering the year we've had with COVID, the shutdowns, the challenges we've had going, you know what? We've had a great year. We really, really have. Just a couple of the highlights. We've got $1.7 million for 16 multifamily building, and that was on First Street. And we've got the commercial. There was over $1 million in commercial, but one of the bigger commercial projects was a $600,000 commercial storage building on Park Road West. And then we have another highlight was a 10-plex multifamily building on First Street for $1.5 million. So there's a couple of big ticket items here that have really helped us out this month. But council, we've had, all things considered, we've had a fantastic year. I'm just looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Swaystra. Any comments?
Nothing further.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have 10D, bylaw 2165. This is the first reading. Starts on page 72 of our package. Mr. Workning, could you please introduce this file?
This is a rezoning bylaw number 2165 that is being presented for council's consideration for first reading. It does relate to the subject property, which is 85 First Street, which is a vacant lot, and part of the neighboring property at 79 First Street, which has an existing single-family structure on it. In this particular area on First Street, several rezoning applications have recently been approved by City Council. These approvals have permitted up to 92 multifamily units to be developed on this street over the last couple of years. This application intends to develop an additional 24 units. With respect to the application, the proposal to include a portion of the neighboring property in the rezoning application, it does involve a property that's fairly narrow. The property at 79 First Street is presently 79 feet wide, or sorry, 45 feet wide. If the rezoning proceeds, a future subdivision application would require consideration and could result in the residual parcel containing an existing single-family dwelling, which would then be bounded on 3 sides by multifamily development. Although the subject property at 85 First Street is of sufficient width to meet the minimum dimensional standards as required under the City of Steinbach zoning bylaw, overall the application doesn't appear to be a good fit for the neighborhood. Recommendation from administration is to deny first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Wargentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Swykstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will make a motion to deny first reading.
Anyone to second? Second by Councilor Siemens. Go ahead, Councilor Swykstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that in the majority of cases, when there's a redevelopment proposal, that we give first reading, so that way we can go on to a public hearing and have a public presentation. But there are cases where staff recommends we deny first reading because it is clear that this is not a good proposal, and there's a few reasons why. As staff have noted here, cutting off the back part of 79 First Street is not very good planning. As a note here, it's by our city planner, the end result creates a flag RMD lot and then a tiny single-family lot sandwiched between 2 medium-density developments. You end up with a property that there's now nothing you can really do with it there. And as our planner states, it does not make smart planning sense to permit 79 First Street to be cut up as proposed. Secondly, we have a report from our city engineer, which states explicitly the city should deny this application for rezoning because redevelopment of this lot will cause existing drainage problems on 79 First Street to worsen. So an explicit statement from our engineer that if this goes ahead, it will worsen drainage problems, and that's something we don't want to have happen. In addition, our city manager notices here that a concept plan has been provided by the applicant. Upon preliminary review, it does not appear that the concept plan would comply with the city's infill policy. Now, because this would be an RMD rezoning, the property has to comply with that policy, and the concept plan that's been provided already does not comply. Another reason we need to factor in is that we know that rezoning applications have caused concerns among neighbors. We know it's virtually certain that there will be objections. If we think ahead here, that if we're going to have a public hearing, we're going to have objections, our staff are recommending denial for a bunch of very good reasons, it does not make sense to give this first reading. It would make far more sense if the applicant were either to simply had asked for 85 First Street, which actually does comply, or acquire 79 First Street and add it into 85 and then have a proposal. But to do this chopped up 79 First Street is not good planning, and we should deny first reading.
Anything further, Councilor Siemens?
Yes, I've got a lot of different or the same concerns that Councilor Swykstra just spoke about. I think it requires council to take a big picture view of this area. We have a lot of multifamily happening on First Street already. This is additional multifamily. I'm not necessarily against more multifamily there, but for the same reason. Creating a single small lot between 2 multifamily developments isn't good planning on the city's part, and as stated. I have a concern that access to this property to parking is, there's only 6 stalls mentioned off of First Street, and with the remainder coming down a back lane. A back lane that wasn't in part of city planning, it was part of a municipal board hearing ruling that forced the city to develop, further develop that back lane. So now that back lane becomes the only access point for majority of the parking for this development. But the biggest concern I have is what does the big picture look like if we allow this to go ahead and 79 First Street is a single-family lot among a whole lot of different multi-family dwellings. So I don't think it's good planning on behalf of the city for us to approve this.
Thank you. Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors Zwijgstra and Councillor Sleemans both do bring up some very valid points with regards to drainage, with regards to the leftover lot, as well as with regards to the community. However, I also feel that these are questions that should be able to be held in a public forum and be answered to. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the motion, regardless of whether this lot gets turned into a flag or they just RMD the current lot. There would still be multifamily on each side. If the owner of the home property chooses to devalue their own home by chopping up the lot, I feel like that's something that they should be able to talk to in public with regards to, as well as the engineer says with regards to the drainage. We should be able to ask questions with regards to what the developer plans to do to mitigate that. There's just too many questions that I would like answers to in a public forum that I can't support this, turning this down at first reading.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Councillor Penner?
I will not support the motion as well. I think, again, there's some questions we should be asking in terms of, as Councillor Penner mentioned, whether it's a flagged lot or whether it goes straight through, it's still an isolated, narrow lot. I don't see how that makes a big difference. And then also in terms of drainage, maybe I can ask through you to
Go ahead.
Administration, is that not something that can be addressed with a plan, a drainage plan?
Perhaps, but if the existing lot configurations drain to both the rear of the property and the front, it may pose challenges.
Just out of curiosity, if you don't mind, wouldn't that be with any multifamily that would be put on that property?
It would have to be a consideration
Right.
if this file does proceed.
Okay, or if it would be any multifamily, regardless of it's this file or a different one? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things in response to some of the comments that are raised. As far as I understand where Councillor Damien Penner is coming from, but to say that if the owner chooses to devalue their own home with bad planning, that's their choice. As a city, we are responsible to make sure good planning happens. And we have our staff, multiple staff, planner, engineer, city manager, that are recommending we deny for some very good reasons. It's bad planning, drainage problems, concept plan doesn't fit our infill policy. We know there's going to be neighborhood objections. Do any of us here seriously think that when we go to a public hearing and we have neighborhood objections and our staff is recommending we deny, I can't think of a time where we've ever approved a project where the staff is recommending we deny and there's significant neighborhood objections, and then we're going to go ahead with an approval? Seems very unlikely. We should not be allowing bad planning, and this is not a good plan. The applicant should be, in order to go past first reading, there has to be a reasonable likelihood that this is going to work, and the red flags are quite significant here.
Thank you. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Number 10E, excavator license. That's on page 90. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Siemens.
We'll do that. I would like to drive an excavator one day.
Motion, seconder, Councillor Ebert. You've made comments already. Anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Number 11, council question period. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none. We'll go to 12A. Pat Porter Active Living Center and Serving Seniors, Inc. Letter of Support Request. Council, how would you like to proceed? Take it as information? Councillor Swick.
Thank you, sir. We can certainly take this information, but I think they're simply asking for a letter of support because they need a letter of support for their application process with Southern Health for annual funding. And I don't know if we need a motion, but I would certainly endorse you as mayor sending them a letter of support.
Okay. Then we will we'll get working on that and get a letter out to them. Okay. And we've got 12B, the JCAP Library minutes from October 21st, 2020. Is there anything to add, Councillor Penner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing that I would like to add is now with the restrictions that we are in, the library is still absolutely capable of doing curbside pickups and is accepting those. So go through the website or call them, and we can definitely still provide that service to our citizens.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll take this as information. Council, that brings us to 13, other business. Council, I want to take a moment to address something in our community. And we all know that last week was a very difficult week. There were many emails, many concerned residents due to the event that was held on Saturday. But I just want to, and I know you know, but I just want to tell it publicly what had happened because of that event. Our MLA, Kelvin Gertzen, had posted on Facebook that he was just going to show some appreciation to our ER workers and bring some food and gift certificates to them. Well, that opened up just a floodgate of doors. And by the time I talked to him, he had raised $5,000 in appreciation for our healthcare workers. So we talked about it a little bit, and he asked me to come with him on Sunday, as he was going to present these to the RHA board and the healthcare workers that were working in the ER. And I'm so glad that I did, because I got to see firsthand what's going on in our ER and what our ER workers are facing on a daily basis because of COVID. And it really changed things for me. And I was really glad that we could thank the ER workers, the doctors that are dealing with this. And it's very important that we thank them, that we pray for them and keep them appreciated. But when you look at the entire healthcare system, there's so many other healthcare workers. There's so many workers that work with seniors. There's housekeeping, there's linen services, there's custodials. Without any one of them, the system is crippled. It doesn't work. So I just want to take time now to thank all healthcare workers, in no matter what department you work at, whether you're at Rest Haven or Linden Place or Fernwood, no matter what you're doing, if you're working in healthcare or at home care, I just want to, on behalf of council, I just want to thank those people in our community for the job they do, because they're all working with COVID to some degree. I also want to thank STARS. I keep in contact with Daryl Brown, and he emailed me this morning, and he said out of the last 11 days, STARS was in Steinbach 9 times to pick COVID patients up and bring them to where there was room for them. And so I want to thank STARS for what they do in our community, and how they provide a service that is so time sensitive, and it helps save lives in our community. But on this weekend, we have to think back, and at the event we had RCMP, they too are a member of our community, an organization that put themselves in the way of harming us daily. And what they do for us, and Harold and his members, it's just, and even Joanne, and just how great they are to work with, and how quickly, when there is need, they bring people out of head office. We have such great resources in the RCMP, and I want to publicly thank them too. And of course, I want to take a moment for us to just remember McMahon and Yates in this time. We've got a business in our community that's hurting right now. Going through a fire myself, I know what that's like. It hurts. It hurts when it's just your livelihood's taken away. It's not even your choice. A fire is something that happens. And, I just want to, we just need to, again, watch out for them, show them our encouragement. But I want to thank our firefighters. They go to calls daily. They are constantly putting themselves between us and harm. And I'm so thankful we have the men and the women that we have in these positions. And I just think that of all the things of Steinbach, we have so many great things when you look at our healthcare workers, STARS, our RCMP, the firefighters, just the community itself, and just how we've come together in a time. And there'll be more. We'll need to come together some more, because once we get through all this, we'll have to rebuild, as McMahon and Yates are rebuilding now. But you know what? We've got the community that can do it. And council, I wanted to show my heart in this, and I just wanted to, on behalf of council, I just want to thank these organizations in our community and show our appreciation to them by publicly announcing all the good they do. Thank you. For a motion to adjourn, Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Our next council meeting will be Tuesday, December 1st, 2020 at 7:30. Thank you.
Should have just pulled it over.
Yeah,
Just an application.
Good meeting.
exactly. I thought that was the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't think I need to keep any of it.
What was our highest